and welcome everybody to this, the final session for the day of the Revolution Festival. We have, of course, got all of tomorrow to look forward to, and we've got an absolutely fantastic panel for you right here, right now. I will introduce myself and the panelists after we've heard some music. So what I suggest is that you get comfortable, turn up the volume, perhaps pour yourself a drink, and enjoy the sounds of 47 Soul featuring Low-Key.
Out here it's madness, got to hold your ground. Won't let you down. Even if you left, had to sort things out. Won't let you down. لما يهبط عزيمي حكم الخذلان اللي يوجعني بقلبي فراق الخلان وردك فتح ما سكر ما هو بذبلان كشف لعن بتاريخك على ابو الزعلان بكره بيغرقوا بالطوف وكل ولادك حتشوف طردوا نجوم بسماك لما يشبكوا بصفوف والرافد ودينا سمعنا هدي عنا وللسفينة لا تلومني ولا تقولي هذا لا يكفي ما هو انت لازم تيجي وتشبك بدينا Out here it's madness, got to hold your ground Won't let you down Even if you left, had to sort things out Trump, Boris connected like plug sockets. Love profit, wanna mug us off, bruv, we must stop it. One topic, low-key and 47, unlock it. One topic, low-key and 47, exploiting our difference. They poison the infants, a voice from the distance. Our choice is resistance. Parasites wanna snatch your life, so I slap them twice when I grab the mic. Nationalize our Abdikarim Qasim when we fraternize. Revenge of the pedagogues, censorship never stops. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell the cops. Sent to offend the mob, lengthen the renaissance. Heroes getting shot, left to rot, legends lost. Out here it's madness, got to hold your ground. Won't let you down. Even if you left, had to sort things out. Won't let you down.
Yes, 47 Soul featuring Low-Key. The track was called Stand Your Ground. Video was kind of glitchy, but it sounded great to me. Sound all right to my other panelists? Sounding great. Yeah, sounding fantastic. My name is Dave Randall. I am a musician and a Counterfire member and a patron of the Palestine Solidarity Campaign. And I will be your host for this afternoon's panel. The panel is about Palestinian culture and resistance. And it's worth mentioning that this session is very much complemented by another session that we are running tomorrow called Existence is Resistance, a short history of the Palestinian struggle, featuring Michael Lavalette and Leanne Mohammed. It's also worth mentioning that Michael Lavalette has written a very, very good book about Palestinian culture and resistance. Doubtless he will tell you more about the book tomorrow, but I, for one, highly recommend it. So make sure you get hold of a copy of Michael's book. This afternoon, we will hear from 3 Palestinian artists or cultural practitioners about their work and about the role that they feel culture plays in the political struggle. We will be joined by Shahd, or are joined already by Shahd Abusalama, who is a member of the all-female Dabka dance company Hawiyya. She's also a singer and a visual artist and an academic, so I'm absolutely delighted that she's made time in her very busy schedule to join us. We will also be joined, or have been joined, by Mustafa Sheta, who is the General Director of the Freedom Theatre in Jenin, and he's joining us live from the West Bank. Now, many of you will know what an absolutely crucial cultural hub the Freedom Theatre has been in the West Bank. And as a result of that, it has been attacked numerous times by Israeli forces. Its predecessor, the Stone Theatre, was completely demolished by Israeli bulldozers back in 2002. And tragically, a previous director of the Freedom Theatre, Giuliano Mayor Karmis, was assassinated in 2011. So let us be under no illusion. Running a theatre in the occupied West Bank is not an easy gig, but it's a very, very important one. So it's an absolute pleasure and privilege that Mustafa can join us. And we also have Ramzi, aka Z the People, from the Palestinian band 47 Soul, who you just heard. So it's an absolutely fantastic panel. The format will be slightly different to the format that you have enjoyed throughout the afternoon. This session will be more of an in-conversation sort of session. We want to have plenty of time to hear from our panelists, to look at some video, and therefore we will not have a Q&A in the same way that we have had throughout the afternoon. Instead of having a Q&A, we will finish this session with Shahd singing us a song, which I'm sure will be absolutely fantastic. So we're not having a Q&A. However, having said that, if you have an absolutely burning question for one of the panelists, if perhaps you've joined this meeting specially to ask one of our panelists a question, then you can send it through to Counterfire support and they will relay it to me and I will try to read it out if we have time. But no promises. That's not the format of this particular meeting. Okay. Let's make a start. Let me turn first to Shahd Abusalama. It's great to see you, Shahd. Always is great to see you. Thanks so much for joining this panel. I suggest that we should begin by having a little look at a clip of your dance company, Hawiyya. We've got a short clip lined up of a performance at the Globe Theatre, Shakespeare's Globe here in London. Let's have a little look at that and then we'll have a chat afterwards, if that's okay. before I ask about that and about Hawiyya, let me begin by asking you this. You grew up in Gaza. Did you find that to grow up in a place so profoundly affected by the political situation, by the blockades and the blockade and the bombardments and so on, do you feel that culture and the arts have always been inextricably linked to politics for you?
It's a very good question, Dave. Thank you. And thank you for hosting me. I'm so happy to be joined with all of you. And I'm so looking forward to hear from the other panelists as well. In a context like Palestine, it is really hard to separate the personal from the collective, the private from the public, or the cultural from the political. They're all interlinked. And it is really like the reality that forces this sort of character on our cultural expressions. So really, we don't see any like dichotomy or separation between the spaces of art, our culture, the spaces of culture and spaces of resistance. But I think another thing that is very important, equally important, is the culture, spaces of culture as tools for survival, really. And it's fascinating. Like I grew up around lots of artistic people in Palestine and Gaza. And this has been like part of my life ever since I was a kid. Even Dabke, actually, like Dabke has been an integral part of my life. And I probably started dancing it before I started making my first steps. This was a running joke in the family, but this is very important because it helps us, I guess, process all these paradoxes that captivate us in Palestine, and really, like, sometimes I think of all these tools that I had and how like my parents were very conscious really about cultivating this love for dabke or song or folklore, our heritage in general. And that was really like something that made us a lot stronger, before we even realized how significant they are to our survival, our day-to-day.
And Hawiyya, I presume, which is a UK-based dance company, is an extension of this idea of art as resistance. It's very much got that focus.
Yes, exactly. And to be honest, like I'm still trying to adapt to the new situation of me living outside Palestine. And for me, when I arrived first in London in 2014, I was like asking my first questions where it was like, where are the Palestinians? Where's the Dabke dancers? Where are these groups? And then I was connected to some of the women that have formed Hawiyya with. And this space is such a beautiful, collective to have, a space to have, to celebrate our culture. And sometimes they see that people are not real unless they have culture. And I think also culture allows people maybe to who are far away from Palestinians and all that to see Palestinians eye to eye, like normal people, like any other people who have their own heritages and histories and civilizations and all that. And it's also like in Hawiyya, we are not just Palestinians. We're Palestinians and British and Portuguese and Italian and Brazilian, and we are so international basically. And our commitment for the Palestinian cause and for anti-racism, anti-imperialism is really what binded us together. And made us create Dabke, and Dabke has become, yeah, like we brought it to the streets of London. We feel like it belongs there, not only the streets of London, but all over the UK. And it's beautiful, like it's an honor whenever, and we all have like an exceptional joy, really, when we dance Dabke.
I want people to see this properly. What we will do is put a link to Hawiyya's website in the chat, and I would encourage people to go and visit the website. And indeed, if there, as I say, it's a UK-based dance company. If somebody viewing this meeting is thinking about putting on an event, book Hawiyya. If you're interested in the dancing, book up for one of the workshops. What's coming up? Are you running some workshops in the foreseeable future with Hawiyya?
So, of course, the lockdown has affected the arts world in so many ways, and we are not exceptional in this regards, but we tried to use whatever resources possible to keep the Dabke present. And actually, like I'm going to post this link, kurfidance.com, and there you can find some of the things that we did despite lockdown. And one thing that I would like to share, which I wish that more people interact with, is workshops that we've filmed and created for people who want to learn. And I love those dances myself, and it was amazing. Really, it's beautiful to have like a course that you could do on your own time, and we wanted people to have these resources so they can teach themselves with, you know, like somebody leading you in a video. So please check it out. We do have plenty of events coming up, but keep an eye on our social media, Hawiyya Dabke. I can put here as well, Hawiyya Dabke. This is how you can find it.
I think the team I think the team has shared the link to the website, and from the website we can find you on social media. Fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Thanks for starting the meeting. Let me turn now. Let me bring in Mustafa Sheta, who, as I say, is joining us live from Jenin in the West Bank. We will, of course, talk about the Freedom Theatre, Mustafa, but let me first of all ask you, what's life like at the moment on the West Bank? I mean, I would imagine that at the best of times, life is tough with the settlements and the settler violence, the military raids, the checkpoints, the apartheid wall, and so on. On top of all that, COVID-19, this must be a particularly challenging time.
You can't imagine. In fact, hi all. I am happy, in fact, to be with you in this event. Thank you for Dave to bring me here. In fact, in West Bank, beside all of what you mentioned, we face another problem. In fact, with our authority, with the Palestinian Authority, in this time. You know, every day we have like demonstration against the security procedures, against the people, the activists in West Bank, because they talk about their rights and talk about their hope in Palestine after all of this political and peace procedures with the Israel, with the Israel government, with the Zionist government. Until now, we don't achieve anything. We lose the land every day. And I think Israel, they are happy with this rule of the Palestinian Authority as a comprador. They work in Palestine and they protect all the, the interest of Israel in West Bank. And that makes the people really angry in this time. And all of us as a Palestinian cultural organization and the majority of the NGO, the Palestinian NGO, they are boycott the government in this time because they try to push the government to return to think about the Palestinian as a Palestinian and to invest in our identity, to invest in our human power here in Palestine, because we need to support each other to continue. And sometimes that's important to make some time to talk about that with the foreign people, with the international community, to know the result of the peace process and the result of this kind of political relationship between the poor and weak power and strong power. The result is being with weak authority without any hope for the people. And this is a problem. You know, it's not, move or change our thinking about the kind of occupation we faced here in Palestine. The people, our youth in Sheikh Jarrah, in Jerusalem, in Gaza, in different areas, in Beta, is small villages close to Nablus. They continue in their struggle to take off the settlers and the Israeli army to be out of their homeland. And that's happened just before 1 week when the people from Beta, the farmers there, they take off the settlers from their amount there in their land. And that's important. In fact, it's not just with the Palestinian Authority, not just with Israeli, not just with COVID-19. Besides all of those, the EU come to Palestine 2022 last year, and they asked us to sign for a new statement to consider the Palestinian struggle as a terrorist action. And we said, what that mean? For example, person like me, I was an Israeli prisoner. I am ex-prisoner. And that means I consider my action before against the occupation as terrorist. And it's not fight to get freedom and liberation. And we don't sign for this for sure. We don't sign for this kind of statement. And depending on that, they cut off their fund for those organizations don't accept to sign for in their statements. Not just the Freedom Theater, we are part of the Palestinian Performing Arts Network in Palestine, and another organization. All of us, we say no for your political condition, and we continue in our work, depend on our small resources, and we continue in 2022. 2022 it was really difficult year because, you know, Trump, he decided to transfer the capital of, between quotation, Israel to be in Jerusalem. And it was like big scandal in political, you know. And after that, Israel decided to try to change the nature of the Jordan Valley to annex the Jordan Valley. COVID-19 didn't allow for us to continue in our normal work as people work in normal life. And as what I mentioned for the bad situation in economic and social and political side in Palestine, in West Bank. And that's, when I talk about West Bank, you need to think about the double of it in Gaza, because what's happened here, it's double in Gaza. What I said about this authority here, it's double in Gaza. Besides, yeah, we respect for sure, all the Palestinians, they respect the resistance and the people, they work in the military or peace resistance, but in the same time, that's not allowed for any person to didn't give us the the freedom of thinking and freedom of expression and all of that.
Yeah. We will talk more in the general discussion about recent events, and I hope that we will have time in particular to talk about the very inspiring Palestinian strike, which was very much a grassroots-led action that spread right across not only the West Bank and Gaza, but Israel as well. So I'm hoping that we'll have time to speak about that soon. But let me first of all point out that despite all these challenges, Mustafa, you have still managed to prepare a new show at the theatre, Counterfire, Made in China. Shall we watch a short segment of the video that you sent me so that we can get a bit of a flavour of that show?
بالنسبة لي الفنان بدون قيم، بدون أخلاق، بدون مسؤولية يروح على هوليوود وأمريكا. إحنا للأسف عندنا مسؤولية نقدر نتخلص منها. عندنا مسؤولية تجاه حالنا، تجاه قضيتنا، تجاه مجتمعنا، تجاه الأفراد اللي بيعيشوا بحالات خاصة. في كثير أشياء إحنا لازم ندير بالنا ولازم نحكي عنها ولازم نمثلها ولازم نعرفها.
أنا مؤمن سعدي من مخيم جنين، طالب في مدرسة مصر على الحرية للفنون الأدائية سنة ثالثة. اليوم عندنا عرض لكوفية صنعت في الصين من إخراج أحمد طباصي وكتابة داليا طه. العرض كليا مختلف لطلاب مدرسة مصر على الحرية، معنا ممثلين برضو جداد علينا. العرض بيختلف من ناحية ديكور مسرح، من ناحية تمثيل، من ناحية كوستيوم. بتمنى يكون هذا العرض دعم لطلاب مدرسة مصر على الحرية وتقدم إلهم.
Could you briefly tell us a little bit about what we've just seen, Mustafa?
It's Counterfire, you know, the Palestinian craft made in China. It's like, you know, the Palestinian craft, it's really important for the Palestinian. And regardless of all of what's going on around us, we don't make it as handmade because it's really a traditional production and it's national production in Palestine. But related with the capitalism world now, the people in China, they make it and send it to us, and you know, we talk about Palestine too often. But it's not just about that. It's in this play, it gives you different senses from our reality life in Palestine. When we talk about the problem in a checkpoint with Israel because they ask the Palestinian to take off their clothes and be naked in the checkpoint just to be sure we don't have any weapons or something like that. It show you this image and how the people after that they keep or protect with their dignity after all of that. How they continue in their life when they be naked in the front of their wives or daughters or their sons, and in the same time he be like the strong man. He talk about everything, he can protect them in different way. You know, that's really like complicated. It's like schizophrenia because you are all the time consider all the people around you, they can be with you, but in the same time you can lose them if the occupation can take off, arrested them or kill them. And this is the problem happened in our society. In the same time, we talk about the government. Here all the time as a theater, all the time mentioned for the political issue, especially in Palestine. We critique the Palestinian Authority and we against the idea of to have the government with one man, you know, or the dictatorial. Because, and we mentioned for that, we need to stop that if we need to focus for something different, like democracy life. All the parties can share the authority and represent the people and represent their priorities and their ideas and their problems. And there's different stories in this play. The idea of this play, it's not just the play. We talk about the theater. We talk about the theater school in Jenin. And you know, the Jenin is different maybe with another area or another cities. We are more conservative in Jenin, more religious in Jenin, not like, for example, Ramallah. But in the same time, it's like big challenges to have theater in Jenin refugee camp. And that, where is the challenge? Because the people, they ask, after the invasion happened in Jenin in 2002 and the military resistance and a small battle between a little fighters in Jenin refugee camps and the Israel army happened here in 2002, the people ask us, do you want to get liberation, or you can fight Israel or fight the occupation by theater, with actor, with how that's happened? And here we mention and raise the title of cultural resistance. You know, the idea of the freedom theater itself, it's like the model of the kind of the problem in Palestine. Here I don't say conflict, I don't say dispute, it's occupation. But when Giuliano and before Giuliano, Arna Mer Khamis come to Jenin during the first Intifada in '89, and they established the Childhood Center in Jenin. And after that, Giuliano and Arna established the Stone Theater in the middle of Jenin refugee camp. After that, the Israel destroyed the camp, and one of the houses was the Stone Theater. When Giuliano returned to Jenin in 2006 and established the Freedom Theater, the idea here is to have cultural and political and social movements. And we use the culture and we use the theater as a platform to expression and talk about everything. Because after all of these years, sorry, this is the last one. After all of these years with the military, let me see, clashes and negotiation, until now we don't get liberation. And we are people under occupation, and we look forward to get this liberation and get free of Palestine.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic stuff. Thank you for that. What we will do is we will put a link to the Freedom Theatre in the chat as well, so that people can go and learn more about the things that you've been talking about, the history of the theatre, and also ways that the people viewing this afternoon can support the theatre, which is so crucial. I'm going to read out a quote from Giuliano, but who you mentioned, he was the former director who I mentioned in my introduction. But before I do that, let me bring in Ramsey into the conversation. So we'll come back to you, Mustafa. AKA Z, the people from, of course, the band 47 Soul, who we heard from earlier. I suggest, Ramsey, if it's okay with you, that we hear some more of your music. We've got the video for Run queued up. Do you want to introduce the video and tell us a bit about the song?
Yeah, let's do that. First of all, thank you for hosting all of us. And thank you to all attending. I just flipped through the faces just quickly just to see who's in the room. So thank you all for being here. This song, Run, or Raqada, is about the feeling of always catching up, always feeling behind. And I think the reality that Palestine is an intersectional cause in the whole world is involved in some way. One of the lines talks about the cake being divided and there's no cake left. You know what I mean? So this feeling of always catching up has us in, that feeling of pressurizing ourselves and each other. You know what I mean? To arrive our message. Other parts of the song talk about right of return, how it's been sold for nice cars, and being labeled Palestinian as a way to take away the universalism inside of us. So these are some of the issues opened in the track.
Fantastic. Well, I suggest, we're kind of, let's play it in full. I think we should hear the full song and then we'll have a conversation.
تدريني اللي بيحكي معك بس فلسطيني 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 من جيل انقطعنا والقدس فوق وتحت وجنبه نص إن كنت بنت البلاد أبا عن جدا فلاحي وقت ضغطيني 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 أنا راسي عالي دايما فوق لو كل الكوكب كان يطخ أنا غني وارقص واصمت خنشوف كل كتاب بالنص لو شاط الظالم احنا نصد بنص الساحة زلامة وقت وكيف ارتاح وانا بس سواح براسي مسافر حب
ثوري صفية تلفت حولي كله نفاق يا عمي كله ماني 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 حق العودة تبدل في حق الأودة كله نفاق يا عمي كله ماني 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 الركم كله بده تربك هن حاول مرة رسالة بس في هالبلد ما في سيرفيس هن الركم كله بده تربك هن برك ولا ما بنجو في هالبلد ما عنا ولا نتفدم
When you're feeling like you've done the max, things don't go the way you asking. Keep the faith cause staying on track. بدو فلاحين to the end of days. يا سائل عن طريق الفوز ويعاتبني لاني مش عارف. ضل دافش ضلك حتى طلوع الحق. راسك ارفع لا ما تهابش ناقوس الخطر اندق. انا ما جيت اترجاك تزور. انا كلامي ملل سطور حاسس انا من جوا غصة انتو هلوس خطة نهضة وين الكيكي هاتوا عطة خنقتوا ابن البلد بعرضة دافش ضلك حتى طلوع الحق راسك ارفع لا ما تهابش ناقوس الخطر اندق عمرك لا ما تضلك ساكت لو حولك وجين الظابط والدنيا بوجهك لو داقت اوعى بعمرك ترضى بذل
Fantastic stuff. Run by 47 Soul. Yeah, absolutely. I love the sound of 47 Soul. It's a genre that has been called sham step. Tell me about the musical origins of sham step.
Word. First, I just want to say on that track, this style, in case anybody wants to search it, is from Hawiyya, which is traditionally like a Bedouin style. Yeah, Shahid's doing the dance. And of course, it features Tam al-Far and Synaptic, if you want to check out their other work. The sham step style, it comes from two words, sham and step. Sham refers to Bilad al-Sham, which we, historically referred to as the region of Palestine, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, and parts of Iraq. And we felt that was important to emphasize because this region, of all the regions of the Arab world, we felt like is the most divided into small nation states, which are unable to achieve a bigger power because of this division. So, and plus it's a very dear part of our identity, being that we share a lot of the same moves, especially Debka, and the step being that part, like Shahd was saying, like she knew how to dance before she knew how to step. So sometimes to brand the movement, you have to show people how to step.
Yeah, and by the way, if people don't know, Hawiyya, Shahad's dance company, have worked with 47 Soul, and I hear a rumor
That's
that
right.
that collaboration may continue. I certainly hope so.
Us too.
Now, you were touring quite extensively before COVID hit with 47 Soul. I guess that you will be again as soon as possible. I'm curious to know, when you're playing to different international audiences around the world, do you feel as if partly your role is educational, you know, when you're playing to audiences who don't know much about the situation in Palestine? And if so, how do you approach that?
Do you mean outside the Arab world? Like
Yeah, I
international?
mean,
Yeah,
you talk a lot in Europe and,
okay.
and I guess the US, which is
Yeah.
where you're usually based, isn't it, you
Sure.
personally? But certainly in countries like the UK, perhaps at WOMAD Festival, you know, members of the audience might not know much about Palestine. So, you know, do you see that your role is partly to educate rather than just entertain?
It's a very long question. I mean, a long answer. It's a short question with a long answer. The long answer, I think, the short answer is that we're not a news site. You know, we're artists. The Palestinian cause is a very long struggle, which needs a lot of understanding of history, sociology, political science, you know, theology. Like, it has so many economy, it has so many elements that it can't really be summarized, I don't think, by one individual or one artistic group. So in that sense, we try to arrive a feeling just like any other artist. I mean, in terms of like, you know, education, we do, you know, we do talk about specific aspects of the struggle, and we do share with different groups when we're in different places that represent specific parts of resistance. So we try to draw attention to as many of our, you know, our comrades as possible that are joining us. But in the general picture, you know, it's the feeling. And I think this is my analysis, but people are usually moved to action by empathy. And it's not really the artist's job to break down what they think so much. I mean, we're doing it now on a panel for special circumstances. But the idea of, you know, arriving the feeling, you know, an artist should tell you how they feel, not necessarily what they think.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's quite an interesting point, isn't it? That that yes, you have the actual art, in your case, the music, but then you have, but in a sense that gives you other platforms like this panel or in interviews in the media and so on. And so it's a process, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Talking about these issues. Let me bring in the other panelists, if I may. I mentioned a moment ago that I wanted to read a quote from Giuliano Mercamis, Mustafa's predecessor, at the Freedom Theatre. I want to read this quote out because I think it's quite important. This is what he said about the work of the Freedom Theatre. "We are not trying to heal violence. We try to channel it into more productive ways, and more productive ways are not an alternative to resistance. What we are doing in the theatre is not trying to be a replacement or an alternative to the resistance of Palestinians in the struggle for liberation, just the opposite. This must be clear." And I think that's an important quote because it's true, isn't it, that quite often the arts and cultural events are used to prop up this kind of false narrative that there is some sort of meaningful peace process with Israel. And if only Israelis and Palestinians could get to know each other over a performance of Beethoven or something, then everything would be fine. Now, I suspect that most of us, all of us, I suspect, would agree that that is actually the art washing of the situation, you know, an attempt to normalize occupation and oppression. So I'm curious to know from all of you, how important is it to present your art as part of the unified Palestinian struggle against Israeli apartheid policies and oppression? Jump in, and any of the three of you.
That's the first time I ever heard the word art washing. And now I want to go after this panel and record an album called Art Washing, because it's very, very powerful. And I'll tell you, we faced this exact concept a lot of times, which is being painted as a, you know, just to be very blunt about it, coexistence festival, which tries to invite Palestinian and Israeli artists to show that things are, equal two sides. And we know that that's not the case. And we know that artists can be used to promote a peace process, which has caused more division. So right now, it's a very serious issue. But I think the artists can, with the relative mainstreaming of alternative media, this idea that the media power is coming back to the artist, and it's on the artist to present themselves and introduce themselves and tell the story, and talk directly to their audience and everything. I think, there's a new sight out of this art washing.
By the way, I'll only take 10% publishing for the album title, and I'll donate my bit to Counterfire. Mustafa, do you have any thoughts about this?
In fact, this quote is my introduction in my thesis and my study. What you said, the idea, and because we are close to Giuliano as a student of Giuliano or people who work with Giuliano, we know what that means exactly. In fact, when we are part of the revolution, we are not part of the revolution. We don't consider us, we are, as what Giuliano mentioned, we are not alternative to maybe to show you the nice people working just for the soft power work in Palestine. No, we consider us as part of the whole picture. And the whole picture, it represents all the kind of resistance for the people they are against the occupation and the oppression, as what you said. This is important for us, and this is one of the main stones of our work in Palestine as the people working in cultural field. And because beside all of that, we don't the work with the people, the work with the Palestinians themselves, it's not easy. And as what I said, because they are feel miserable from all the ways to get liberation, sometimes they consider us, okay, what you want to do? Already, and we all the NGO, all the non-government organization, they get their money, for example, from Europe organization or from outside. And the people all the time, they are not trust on this way. When the people, they get money from outside, really they want to support us to get liberation. Already they support, for example, Israel. Already they support another the authority. That it's not logic. But yeah, I totally agree with what Giuliano said, and we continue in this methodology in our work here in the theater. For that, we keep and protect all these important elements and items to continue in the same level, in the same idea, and that's important. The another idea and the another subject, it's about the culture itself. I think it's important to invest in culture and for the Palestinian. The Palestinians, they are not live in the same country. We don't have one place. We are not live together. There are diaspora in Lebanon, in Europe, in Latin America, and we try all the time to work together. For example, for us as theater, we have found called The Journey of Others, and it's a product by Palestinian from Chile. They are come to Palestine, and he want to focus for how the Palestinian, they can travel from Palestine to perform in New York. And this story, it's nice. And maybe keep or save the name of the film. It's called The Journey of Others. It's an important film. And beside all of that, why we are focused sometimes to perform in Europe, in Paris, in London, and we were the Freedom Theater was in London to perform The Siege, for example, and after that perform in New York. But the idea of perform there, because we try to find like a global language to discover the Palestinian, how the Palestinian think, and what the Palestinian want, why the Palestinian they still fight, and why we are under occupation until now. I think and I believe we are until now, we are the last result of the Second World War. Until now, we pay the cost behind our behalf from the world, all the world. And this is what I have to say.
Yeah. It's a very interesting, the internationalist theme running through, I think, the work of all three of our panelists, actually. Shahd, what are your thoughts? How do you ensure that with a dance performance, there is still clear politics that connects the dabka dancing with the Palestinian political struggle?
Well, I wanted actually, I mean, this is a very nice question. Thank you, Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've also been asked whether you can either move closer to the microphone or speak a little louder. Thank you.
Sorry. How is
Thank
it?
you.
How is it now?
صرخي عادي.
Huh?
صرخي عادي. أنا برضه مش سامعك كتير كويس.
أنا عندي صوتي هيك طبيعته بعرفش ليش واطي. ما علينا.
Yeah, go extra.
So I was thinking about the art washing as a concept and how like yes, art washing can happen in so many ways. It's not just about bringing Palestinians and Israelis together and like and all those nonsensical peace process that completely ignore the core issues basically. I mean, this is the problem that Oslo peace process fell into, and then those who made Oslo happen sort of like started investing into culture, becoming part of this whole peace process. But I think Palestinians or the Palestinian society in general, in and out, are a lot more politically conscious to be to fall in that trap, I think. And I'm very proud that we are awake to this factor, that we cannot ignore that there is a huge power imbalance, that there is an occupier and an occupied, a colonizer and a colonized, and the only way that an Israeli could come with a Palestinian is in spaces of co-resistance, not coexistence. And this is actually, I mean, the example of Julian Khamis is brilliant in this regards, because he was one of those vocal, anti-Zionist, uncompromising on Palestinian rights, and he saw himself as an ally in the Palestinian struggle, and he was joining with the Palestinians to cultivate and nourish those spaces of co-resistance. But coexistence wasn't like, you cannot speak coexistence unless you really like speak the core issues. And anyways, so that actually, that period brings a lot of memories to me, because I was in Gaza then. We heard what happened to Giuliano Khamis, and the Freedom Theater was like it's a Palestinian mark. I feel like it's a landmark. I feel, and most camp residents would know the Freedom Theater, and it has a reputation really. And so like we knew about it in Gaza, although like Jenin is not that far, but we could never really imagine us meeting. It was, if it would happen, it would happen digitally only. And it's crazy, but these are the realities of the occupation and settler colonialism and all that. And since we are remembering this, the loss of this person, I would like to remember as well Vittorio Arrigoni, who was killed only 2 weeks later. And I thought then, because like I was in the middle of the whole event, and I felt like I was also in the middle of the assassination of Giuliano Khamis, although I was in Gaza, but I was living it with the loss of Vittorio Arrigoni. And I mean, it's amazing, because those people, you do bring cultural resistance and bring concepts and ideas that are threatening to Israel. And I just want to put it out there that I don't think this happened by coincidence. And it is still, and we are also, like, any Palestinian knows that, like, once you are a cultural agent of change, then you are at risk of arbitrary detention, assassination. And we have plenty of these examples. Like, just few days ago, we remembered the assassination of Ghassan Kanafani. And Ghassan Kanafani was only 36 when he was killed, but he was a truly powerful agent of cultural resistance and used several platforms to express whether in novels, in poetry, in painting. In paintings, he tried every way to express the Palestinian reality and to cultivate the space that is compatible with the uniqueness of our context and our reality. And we really like carry on with their breath. Sorry, that was it's a bit emotional as well.
It's very good.
It was a fantastic answer. On the subject of agents of change and co-resistance, it seems to me that political change is most likely to take place when three things converge: when people are willing to take to the streets to demand change, when workers are willing to go on strike with political demands, and when people in the broader region and indeed across the world act in solidarity. Now, with regard to Palestine, we can see that all three of those things have happened in recent weeks. So I'm curious to know, does this give you a sense of hope? And crucially, how can we sustain these things?
First,
go ahead. Yeah, please.
I'm so proud. I've never been so proud to be Palestinian. I mean, like, I've always been proud, but recently, especially, I mean, although it was very devastating, everything that we've lived with Gaza, yet again, the extent of the devastation and bloodshed that has been inflicted, and for me, like, knowing how are those like, and surviving many of those episodes of what Israel calls mowing the lawn, it was shocking in so many terms, and like, it's hard to really like express it in words. But in the same time, there was this energy that honestly made me feel like Palestine is going to be free again. Like, I mean, like, we hold on hope, because there is actually, we don't have the luxury of despair in our reality, because despair means, khalas, we gave up and we're dead alive. So hope, we need to nurture hope. And every time, like, something devastating happens, there's always a counter force that is a lot more empowering and gives like hope, really, like. And I felt it with Sheikh Jarrah, with the mobilizations that happened all over Palestine. There was no fucking green line. Like, the people, some mainstream media would be like, Arabs in the green line. And in our minds, how we experienced it, there was no green line, there was no 1967 borders, there was a unified Palestine, and even an international unified Palestine. And it was beautiful to see that a people who have gone through this, being killed, dispossessed again and again and again, subject to all forms of oppression, and still hold on to their humanity and hold on to their dignity, and still have ability to you know, still scream and refuse and reject this dehumanization. I think it's something that we should be proud of. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I hope we keep on building it and sustain it. And of course, like, the Palestinians are not alone. into this, and Palestinians cannot do this alone. We have to make this clear, because also what happened recently is that more people became aware. And I think also what helped the Palestinians is that there were other shocking events that were happening around the world, whether it's Black Lives Matter in the US and the killing of Floyd, and Myanmar, and Hong Kong, and so many disturbances were happening, and the Palestinians were like living it, or this is our reality for like decades, basically. And suddenly I feel like there was this like more engagement. And I think with that engagement, with us translating our commitment to our values, to human rights, to a world where peace and justice actually can prevail, we have to all be part of this. When you're not part of this, I think it's a question of your privilege, because for us, we don't have really a choice to be part of it or not to be part of it. But when you're not part of it, then it is your privilege that gives you the luxury to distance yourself from it. And that's something that everyone needs to search within their soul. Yeah.
I just wanted to add one thing to Shahid's point about the choice, the luxury, because the question between cultural resistance and military resistance as an alternative is assuming that you have a choice to begin with. And just to make that more mechanical for people, maybe on the Zoom, like, you know, if police search your house without a warrant and you have to defend against that, and then you're writing, you know, you want to process it and tell people about it so it doesn't happen to them. You know what I mean? Both cases, you might not have a choice. So they're just different methods. But I think that in the bigger picture, like to go back to the second question you asked, I don't think, I mean, we have no choice but not to stop until there's an end of colonial occupation of Palestine. And the unity that happened now, like that glimpse of unity of the 1947 Palestine, it gave us a new hope for sure. But I would say that the feeling like we're attached to the whole world, like Palestine keeps bringing up to the whole world the struggle for human rights, is a very, very basic concept. And I think that this is what Giuliano Merkhamis meant. That's my interpretation by the third intifada would be cultural, is that it's now, for whatever reason, that the world decided that this part of the world would be so divided intersectionally from all the forces. It's now on the Palestinian to further the conversation about human rights in the globe. And I think I saw it happen. Like the first case is, you know, like the liberal who thinks that Biden coming to power would be a change of international intervention. And look, his first move is to bomb Gaza. So that brings up a very important question to all the people that voted Democratic, is what happened to this, you know, change of non-intervention? The second thing is it brings up the case of indigenous rights. I'll bring again the case of America because I grew up there. But, you know, that's a country that's founded on having an entirely separate law for the indigenous people and having a whole group of resources and legal rights not applied to the indigenous people. So this is a very essential part of why I think, you know, America has to deconstruct themselves before they even talk about Palestine. And the third case is the fact that, you know, again, I'm talking about America a lot because I think, you know, we discuss a lot Britain's role in the occupation and its responsibility in the EU, but I would talk mainly about the support structure of the occupation, you know, being, and the colonization as being from America. The third case being the, you know, to do with racial discrimination, which is the capital of America just got voting rights this year. And that's a largely Black city. and it's largely been zoned out of political participation because of this fact. So I think all of these issues are happening in Palestine now. And so I'm not telling people to look away from what's happening here, but look what's happened. Like, we did make a big statement that we are one and we are uprising. And now that the clashes start to be less, the attention starts to go away, and the responsibility becomes greater to actually advance the discourse inside of the institutions. And, you know, I think, like David, you talked about these forces of, you know, being willing. I think it's less of willing. It's a reaction. It's a realistic reaction to the situation. But I would call on people that, let's say, have the established channels to affect governmental policy to push on these issues of human rights, just in general. Because I think that if we advance this conversation in terms of a human issue, and it's not so specific, you know what I mean? Of course, the Palestinian identity has its nuances and it deserves its respect, and it has its own freedom movement, it has its own struggle inside the Arab world, it has a lot of different issues. But the universal responsibility is the central forwardness that we're seeking.
Fantastic. I'm conscious that we are fast running out of time. I'm sorry, I am going to jump in and just say a couple of things. One thing that springs to my mind is that one of the ways in which this conversation has been advanced in the way that you talk about, Ramsey, and indeed it would be remiss not to mention this, is of course the call for boycott, divestment and sanctions of Israel. And I think everybody watching this meeting needs to be clear that that was a call that came out of a democratic vote in Palestinian civil society, and the call remains. And as part of BDS is of course the cultural boycott of Israel, which, as I say, I think has really helped to bring this important conversation to new audiences. I'm just going to ask all of you for one thought, and don't worry if you feel that this is an impossible ask, but I just want just a summing up thought before Shahd sings to close this meeting. I want us all to suggest things that people watching this meeting can do to meaningfully contribute solidarity to the Palestinian cause. I've already mentioned the importance of BDS. I'm going to suggest two other things. I think that people should consider joining the hosts of this conference, Counterfire. Counterfire is a socialist organisation who have consistently campaigned in Britain against British imperialism, against the complicity between Britain and Israel, for Palestinian rights, for the adoption of BDS, and for solidarity with the oppressed peoples all over the world. Also, join the Palestinian Solidarity Campaign and get involved with the various campaigns that they are running. Over to you, just a very quick, I'm afraid, a very quick final thought about things that people can do. Who wants to jump in first? Mustafa?
No, anyone's, you can, Shahd, maybe you can start.
Yeah. I want people to do everything they can, like, in their circles. Like, everyone is an agent of change, and you just like have to believe that you can. And if it's not you, it might be you next. Like, this is something that, I mean, like, as has been said before by Martin Luther King, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And we've seen it in history as well, like the scapegoat or the victim changes across history, but there will always be one. So like, it could be you, and none of us chose to be born Palestinians, but I think everyone needs to use their privilege and do whatever possible their family, starting with their own family, their own circles, their workplace, their neighborhood. We could do so much, really. Like during the attack on Gaza, like my neighborhood became, I don't know, like it could be almost a little neighborhood inside the camp. Like you enter and there are like Palestinian flags everywhere, and it's in England, in Sheffield. But like everyone can bring this sentiment, and I think push for action, because like we do know that we have policies in place on table. We have all these conventions and laws. And if those are really enforced, Palestine would have been free a long time ago. But the problem is there is a higher discourse power that is interested in the survival of the apartheid state of Israel more than serving justice for the Palestinians. And that's why you find examples like the US in the middle of the attack on Gaza, in the middle of hundreds falling, 735 million bill is given to Israel in military aid in the middle of the attack. I mean, those are direct connections between people who live at the reception or at the receiving end of oppression and people who live in places that you don't necessarily associate with, like places where oppression is manufactured. But yes, this is where we are. We live at places where oppression is funded, sponsored, and all that. And we have to do whatever possible to target those ties and dismantle this chain of complicity in Israeli apartheid. And we did it for South Africa. We can do it for Palestine.
I just want to add one thing to Shahad's point. Yeah, it's very quick about the BDS. I noticed because BDS is a great tool to educate. It's a great tool to educate people about Palestine. And I just want to add one thing, which is that BDS is a withholding action. There's also an additive action needed, which is to support the Palestinian people that you think can resist effectively. So, you know, continue to support Janine Theater, Shahad's group, Hawiyya, you know, continue to fund me. Know that you're supporting terrorism while you do it. Just kidding. So it's a serious point. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, just so that we don't get misquoted anywhere. That was a joke.
Was a joke. Yeah, the subtitles important.
No, I mean that is brilliant. Mustafa, I'm nearly over time. Can you make it as quick as possible? Because otherwise I'll be in trouble with the hosts.
Yeah, in fact, just I want to mention for something is important. During the war in Gaza, we asked all the artists in the world with different languages to stand with the Palestinian. And in fact, we get really great result from the artists from different areas in the world, and they stand with us. They send a great result, great letters. But the importance, what I want to say about, because you mentioned for Giuliano, you know, after all of these years of Giuliano until now, Israel occupation and the authority, Palestinian authority until now, didn't know who killed Giuliano. And we are, every year we call those authorities to talk about that. And we make a new project called the Revolution Promise, to mention and focus about Giuliano's story, not just with Giuliano, with another artist in the world. They killed by occupation or with the operation authorities, and until now, no one who killed those artists, especially in Palestine, because the Palestinians sometimes, because we work in arts, like Muhammad Sabani before, like Luay Tafish, like Giuliano, any artist work in cultural field, Israel arrested them, or the Palestinian authority punished him in Palestine. And this is and I ask you for sure to stand with us. I remember the last sentence. I remember what Golda Meir said before, when occupied Palestine. She said, the oldest will die and the youngest will forget. And until now, we continue and we keep this memory about Palestine, and we will continue to protect our history and our land.
Wonderful. Well, Shahd is going to bring this meeting to a close with a song. Let me first of all, if I may, say such a huge thank you to all three of our brilliant panelists, Shahd, Abusalama, Mustafa, Sheta, and Ramzi, aka Z the People. I've noticed that the Counterfire support have put a link to recent articles on the Counterfire website about Palestine, which I highly recommend. So thank you to all the panelists. Thanks to the audience who chose to come to this session. I shall look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. Take it away, please. If you could introduce the song, Shahd, tell us what it's about, and then sing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And listening, and I really enjoyed listening to you. I find that such sessions are very important, actually, to keep us going and feed our determination, really. And I'm going to sing a song for my grandmother. It's a song that when I first heard it, I thought it was as one of these like folkloric songs that have been passed one generation to the other. But actually it was a song that is written by a Palestinian writer. His name is Khalid Jum'a in Gaza. He's based in Gaza. And he wrote it to celebrate this connection that we have with our grandparents, especially their grandmothers, really, because like I feel there is like such a connection between me, for example, as a third generation refugee, and my grandmother. Like I owe her who I am now, and this song is for them, for our grandparents who never returned. But basically, the song celebrates their cultural heritage. The song speaks about my grandmother that has a dress, an embroidered dress, and a shawl. It goes like this. ستي إلها توب وشال عالطوب مطرز غزال جنبو ورد وسنابل وبحواليها 7 جبال. ستي إلها توب وشال يا ستي توبك محلى يسلم إيد اللي سواه. يا ستي توبك محلى يسلم إيد اللي سواه. قالت طرست بإيدي بكرمتنا لبعيدي. طرست غرزي غرزي ولبست ليلة عرسي. طرست غرزي غرزي ولبست ليلة عرسي. وهاد الغرزة من يافا وهاد الغرزة من غزة. هاد الغرزة من جنين وهاد الغرزة من غزة. والشال اللي عكتافي حرير وبرد وصافي. والشال اللي عكتافي حرير وبرد وصافي. لو يا ستي أحكي لك طول العمر مش كافي. لو يا ستي أحكي لك طول العمر مش كافي. ليلي 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 لا لا ليلي 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 ليلي. ستي إلها توب وشال. That's it.
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you all. Hope to see you all again soon. For now, goodbye.